Single Dad saw everyone ignore the female cop's deaf daughter. What he did next shocked everyone. The little girl stood in the middle of the crowded hall, her small hands moving carefully in the air, but no one understood her. People glanced, smiled awkwardly, and then looked away. Even the laughter around her felt distant, like a world she wasn't allowed to enter. And in that moment, something quietly heartbreaking happened. She stopped trying. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small actions to change lives, take a second right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stories like this deserve to be felt, not just watched. It was supposed to be a joyful evening, a community event filled with music, warm lights, and families gathered to celebrate. Tables were decorated with soft white cloths, and the sound of clinking glasses blended with cheerful chatter. But for one little girl, it felt like standing alone in a storm no one else could see. Her name was Lily, the daughter of a hard-working female police officer who had spent years protecting others, often at the cost of her own time with her child. Tonight, she had hoped things would be different. She had dressed Lily in a beautiful green dress, brushed her golden hair, and brought her here with quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, her daughter would feel included. But hope can be fragile. Lily was deaf. She communicated through sign language, her expressions bright and her gestures full of life. Yet in a room full of people, no one spoke her language. Children avoided her because they didn't understand her. Adults smiled politely but quickly moved on. It wasn't cruelty, it was something quieter, something more painful. It was indifference. At one table, a single father sat watching everything unfold. His name was Daniel. Life had not been easy on him. After losing his wife years ago, he had been left to raise his son alone. He knew what it meant to feel isolated, to carry a weight that others couldn't see. He knew how it felt when the world moved forward and you were left behind trying to catch up. That's why when he saw Lily standing there, her hands slowly lowering as she realized no one would respond, something inside him stirred. He noticed the way her shoulders dropped, the way her eyes searched the room for someone, anyone who might meet her halfway. And then he saw her mother across the hall, busy, distracted, but watching just enough to feel the sting of it all. Daniel didn't look away. He remembered nights when his own son had cried, asking why things weren't like other families. He remembered the silence after those questions, the kind that no answer could fill. And in that moment, he realized that silence wasn't just the absence of sound. It was the absence of understanding, so he stood up. People didn't notice at first. Conversations continued, laughter carried on, and the music played softly in the background. But Daniel walked straight toward Lily, his step steady, his expression calm. Lily looked up, surprised. Most people didn't approach her directly. Daniel paused for a second, then did something no one expected. He raised his hands and began to sign. It wasn't perfect. His movements were a little slow, slightly unsure, but they were clear. He introduced himself in sign language, his face warm with a gentle smile. For a moment, Lily froze, then her eyes widened. It was as if a door had suddenly opened in a room she thought was locked forever. Her hands moved quickly, responding, her face lighting up with a spark that had been missing just moments ago. People around them began to notice. The noise of the room didn't stop, but something shifted. Heads turned, conversations slowed. There was something deeply moving about the scene, a man, a stranger, choosing to connect in a way no one else had. Lily's laughter, silent but full of joy, filled the space between them. Her hands danced in the air as she spoke, and Daniel followed along, sometimes stumbling, sometimes pausing, but never giving up. And then something even more unexpected happened. Daniel knelt down and taught her a small game. He signed simple words, encouraging her to respond, making her feel seen, understood, and included. Slowly, other children gathered, curious. They watched, unsure at first, but drawn by the warmth of the moment. Daniel didn't just talk to Lily, he included the others. He showed them basic signs, simple gestures, and invited them to try. At first they hesitated. Then one child mimicked a sign, another followed. And just like that, a bridge began to form. Lily wasn't alone anymore. Her mother stood at a distance, watching everything. Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of something deeper, relief, gratitude, a quiet kind of healing she hadn't expected. She had spent years worrying about Lily's place in the world, wondering if people would ever take the time to understand her. And now, in this ordinary hall among ordinary people, something extraordinary was happening. Daniel wasn't doing it for attention. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He simply saw a child who was being left out and chose to step in. As the evening continued, the energy of the room transformed. Conversations shifted. People became more aware, more present. Some approached Lily, attempting simple signs. Others smiled more genuinely, no longer unsure of how to react. One small act had changed the atmosphere of an entire room. Daniel eventually stood up, brushing off his knees. Lily signed something quickly, her face serious for a moment. He smiled and responded. She had asked if he would come back, and he said yes. That promise stayed with her. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel kept his word. He began visiting regularly, spending time teaching not just Lily, but other children too. What started as a single moment of kindness grew into something much bigger, a small community of people willing to learn, to connect, to care. For Daniel, it changed something inside him too. The emptiness he had carried for years began to feel lighter. Helping Lily, seeing her confidence grow, reminded him that even after loss, life could still be meaningful. And for Lily, the world became less silent. She began to smile more, to approach others without fear, to believe that she belonged. Years later, people would still talk about that evening. Not because of the decorations or the event itself, but because of what one person chose to do. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was powerful, because sometimes the most shocking thing isn't a grand gesture. It's a simple act of kindness in a world that has grown used to looking away. Before this story ends, take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments.